Do you want to take the table tennis game to the next level? This is the perfect video for you. We started with talking about how to stand up in high speed, how to play high speed rallies. We move on to talk about how to create spin, about how to create a lot of spin and different kind of spins. And we finish it with something that has been rare on this channel, to talk about some good tactics when you play table tennis. So let's start with it. So what is actually needed to be able to play table tennis during high speed? The first of all is of course your feet. You always need to be on your toes. You always need to be ready to move and down in your legs. Because if you are having a flat foot on the floor, it means you're going to move slow, you're going to come wrong to the ball. So always be on your toes, always bend your legs to be able to be as fast as possible. Another thing with your legs is to make sure that it's your legs and not your arm who make the first work. For example, if a ball comes on the side of you, never reach for it because you're very weak outside the body. Sometimes you're not able to move both your feet, but if the ball is, for example, a bit on your side, to the backhand side, move your left foot as a right-handed, right foot as a left-handed, of course. Just one step to stand behind the ball. Because make sure to be in the right position to every shot to be able to play fast. So when you play backhand, always make sure that the ball is straight in front of your belly button. So how should your shots actually be? It is very important that your strokes are very short if you want to be able to play in high speed. So your backhand should start close to your body, a little bit of gap from it, and then you should just have a short stroke. In high speed, either you just play a flat ball, or if you make topspin, it should still be a very short movement, because the long one will make it impossible to you to take another fast ball. So a short technique with backhand. When you play forehand, it's extremely important that you don't do any backswing, and that it's your body and not your arm that works. And to make this possible, you need to hit the ball pretty close to you, not so far to the side, because the further from the side you are, the more your arm is released from your body and work itself, which is a slow movement. So hit the ball pretty close to you and hit it in front of you, because if you hit the ball at the side or behind you, it's, as I told you before, the same thing as when you're far away, your arm that makes the work, because your body just want to push forward. You use your knees, your hip, to just push forward because you don't have time to do the backspin in the high speed. And if you hit the ball from here then, from the side, you will not be able to use the power from your body. You will use the power from your arm. So always hit the ball a bit in front of you and pretty close to your body. What's probably the most important when you play in high speed is to know your limits. If you're not able to have control, when you put a lot of speed against the ball with a lot of speed, just block it. It's okay to just block it. And if it's a high speed ball against you and you block it, maybe you don't just hold your racket, but just follow it a little bit against your opponent, against the placement you want. You will get enough speed to make it difficult. So of course, if you can put more quality. If you're a higher level player, you can put more speed and quality, but always consider how difficult ball do I get against me now? What's my quality? Can I put a little bit more topspin on it? Can I put a little bit more speed on it? Or should I just try to place it in a good way? Let's talk about spin. And if you watch this video, you probably already know how it works, but we take it very shortly. So to create spin, you drag your rubber in a direction and at one of the sides of the ball. So for example, if you drag it downwards or under it, you create backspin. If you drag your rubber upwards or over it, you create topspin. And if you drag your racket to one of the sides of the ball, behind the ball, or you hit on the side of it, you create side spin. But let's talk about how to create spin, how to create more spin, and how to create extremely amount of spins. To create a lot of spin, it's extremely important to be relaxed, and we demonstrate this with the backspin serve. So if you are stiff in your arm and wrist, it gets a bit spin in the ball, but if you are relaxed in it, you can see that it gets a lot more. So for example, when you make a serve and want to make spin, it's important that everything works together. You make a little rotation with your upper body, And the arm, of course, makes more spin, but the extra spice is the wrist. With this wrist, you decide both to get a lot of more spin, but also which spin you want to make. Now I will show it is possible to make spin without the wrist, but with it you can get so much more. And also, like in the last millisecond of the serve, you can change it with help of the wrist side spin. You can change it to the other side. So it's the wrist who decides how much spin you get and which spin you actually get. So now you know, to get a lot of spin, you need to be relaxed. You need to work together with your upper body, with your arm, and especially with your wrist. But if you want to make an insane amount of spin, this is actually not enough. The difference to make this extra amount of spin is that you don't only hit the ball on one of its sides, but two of it. So for example, if you make backspin and want to get extreme backspin to bounce back, you drag your racket under it, but then you kick your wrist up behind it too. And the same works with side spin. You hit on the side, but you turn your wrist around it. And now I will show you how much spin you can get if you use these techniques. So you can see I end up my movement here because I go under it and behind the ball. And here on my tomahawk serve, you can see how I also turn around the ball to get extra spin in it. When you create the top spin and want to get a lot of spin in your top spin, it's important to go down in your legs. You make a rotation, you hit behind the ball, and you accelerate a lot with your underarm, because the underarm creates a lot more spin. The body is what creates the consistency and what creates the power in it. So it's an acceleration with your underarm and an extra kick with the wrist to get extra spin. And if we want the super spin we talked about before, we make this upwards as normal, but we also kick it a bit over the ball to rotate around it to create it. And it looks like this. We have arrived to the last part of this video, table tennis tactics. And here you have the chance to take your table tennis result to a completely different level. Pretty easy, because you don't need to improve physically, you don't need to improve any of your shots. And I think everyone, myself included, have a lot to win on improving your tactics. And table tennis tactics can work in two different ways. The first one, maybe the one we think about the most, is how to make your opponent worse, how to make them miss and everything. But the other way, which might be as important, maybe more, is to how to find your own strengths, how to find a tactic to always play your game and make it as good as possible. We start out to talk about how to make your opponent worse, and this has a lot to do with variation. The easiest thing you can do, or actually the first two things we are going to talk about, is very easy, but the first thing is move the ball all the time. Okay, you can hit two balls in a row to your opponent's backhand, but hit one of them deeper to the corner, hit one of them closer to the middle. Force your opponent to move all the time, because a player who knows where the ball will come can look like he's so much better than the reality is. So move the ball all the time. The same works with the speed of the ball, because when we think about moving your opponent, we always think about the placement. But the speed of the ball is as important, but so less used. If you play a slower ball, your opponent gets forced to get closer to the table. If they are close to the table and you play a fast ball, it's very difficult for them to take it. So think about to always make variation in the speed as much as with the placement. And the third thing you can vary, of course, is the spin. You can make a backspin with a lot of spin, but you can make a backspin with less spin, and the same with your topspin. Because if you do the same amount of spin, same amount of power in every topspin you do, your opponent will get used to it and take it very easy. But if you sometimes have it a bit slower with a bit more spin, and sometimes maybe low spin and low power, your opponent will never get used to how to actually block it or counter it, because it's different every time. The last thing about the placement we're going to talk about is probably the best and the most underrated placement, the pocket. Because if you play in your opponent's pocket, they don't know if they're going to take forehand or backhand. And of course, it's very easy to say, yeah, play it to the middle, but it's not always correct, because if you play opponents who play more backhand, their pocket moves a bit further to their forehand. If you play someone who loves to play forehand, it gets a bit more to the backhand. So it's important to see where your opponent stands to find it. And what makes it so good is that when you play to the pocket, they need to take a decision. Should I play forehand or backhand on this ball? And when they make this decision, they lose time, which will make them put less quality in the ball and also higher the risk for them to miss. And one moment when it's extremely good to play to the pocket is when you yourself can find a really powerful fast shot, because then it's a big chance that they will not be able to take it at all, since the ball comes to the pocket and they need to make a decision, should I take backhand or forehand? And since the ball is coming so fast, they will not have time for this decision and probably miss it. And the last detail to make your opponent worse is of course to find their weaknesses and maybe use it a bit more, and especially in important parts of the sets of the match, use their weaknesses. And one very good way to do this is, for example, when you self have the serve. Try out to make different spins, different placements on the table to see how comfortable your opponent is to receiving these balls. For example, if I serve to their backhand and my opponent decides to receive it with forehand, we know, okay, this player is not comfortable with receiving backhand. Then we have the chance to serve a bit deep to the forehand, because then they will need to move a lot, combined with deep to the backhand to make it really difficult for them to make the receive they want. Same in the game. Always try to find what is actually my opponent's weaknesses. If they are really bad in backhand, of course you should use that more. Play them more to the backhand. If they start to turn around, then you need to change your game. Then you need to play more straight balls or diagonal if you play with different hand as your opponent, to force them to get to play backhand from the backhand corner. Make it difficult for them to use their strengths. And to find your strengths, it's all about, okay, what shots am I the best at? What shots do I win my matches on? What shots do I feel the most comfortable at? So for example, if I want to get the ball to my backhand, because I'm the best when I play forehand from my backhand, I need to find out which serves I do that make it most likely for the opponent to receive to my backhand. And if they want to receive it to the forehand, they lose quality. And it's very difficult for me to tell you exactly what this is. So my best advice is for you to practice your serves and try them on different opponents to see what they do on it. For example, I played a player named Yannick Vostes. He played a reverse pendulum serve, short to the forehand all the time. And then he always waits for the ball to the backhand. And if it gets there, he has a very powerful backhand, and it's very good if he turns around too. It's not as good if you get the ball deep here, but for some reason on his reverse pendulum serve, it's very, very difficult to get it with quality this way. And it's also very difficult to play short, so he's always ready for long receives after this serve. And he's ready in the backhand. If something else happens, he take it from there. And the biggest chance is that he will get a pretty easy ball, since it's so difficult to play it there. So to find your strengths, try different things and know, okay, I am a forehand player. Play more forehand, but also find the right directions to make it possible. For example, if I want to play forehand and I play a forehand from my backhand, if you want to play it straight, you need to know for sure that you win the point. Because if they take it here, it's an impossible ball to take next because of the angle. But if I instead play it to the pocket or deep to the backhand, they will not get an angle there. So even if they play it straight, I will be in a position to play the next one. Another thing is, for example, if you are a very, very strong backhand player, okay, play a lot against your opponent's backhand. So you play it off the diagonal with the backhand. If they play it straight, improve your forehand shots, so you always be sure, not always, but so you can play it deep to the backhand, and in that way force them to play it back.